Okay guys, let's sit down and chit chat because I feel like I never, Sugar stretching out his booty on the pillow. I feel like I never got a chance to just sit down and give you guys the whole rundown of how it was moving across, not across the country, I always say this, how it was moving to a whole other country with a toddler, specifically a 2-year-old. Kylo was 2 years and 1 month old when we moved from Canada to the US, and it was such a huge change that I can only imagine how big of a change it was for such a little human. I have so much thoughts around it that I've always just wanted to talk about and never got a chance to. I also want to give you guys my tips on how to make it a smooth process for yourself, for your family, and most importantly, for your toddler or your baby. I don't know, I think when they're under a year old, they have a sense of like, they're not very conscious of things, but after a year and a half, they're very conscious of things. So that's why I think it is definitely easier to move with a baby than it is to move with a toddler, specifically if you're doing a large move like moving to another state, another province, another country. So let's get into it. I've actually been writing down my thoughts about this whole process, just never got a chance to actually sit down and talk to you guys about it, but I also want to know your thoughts. I want to know your experiences too. Have you ever moved to another state with your kids or your toddler or your babies? What was it like? Did you move to another country? So for those of you who might be new here, I was born and raised in a small town near Toronto, Canada, and I have a husband and a 2-year-old. He's actually almost 3 in 3 months, but at the time when we moved, he was 2. We decided to move from Canada to the US, specifically from Toronto to Nashville, Tennessee, and it was such a big change. So one of the first things I have written down that I wanted to touch on was mom guilt. Like, mom guilt was so big for me moving to a whole other country because we were, one, taking him away from his, grandparents, his aunts, and my sisters are really close with him. So I had this like immense mom guilt. To be honest with you, it ate me alive. Like, it literally ate me alive, and I would cry so much about it, but there was just such a large part of me that knew it was the right thing to do. But anyways, this video is not about why I moved to the US and all of that. This is just about the aspects of such a large move with your toddler. And yeah, mom guilt was a very real part of it. I had many sleepless nights where I literally would just cry about it. And you do kind of question if it's the right thing to do. The other aspect is nobody talks about having to leave the home that you had your baby in. And it wasn't even just birthing Kylo or bringing Kylo home in that home. It was also, that was my first home that me and my husband purchased together. We kind of built it from the ground up. It was a brand new home. Like, it was ours, and then we had our son there. So that home just had so much memories packed into those 4 walls. Like, I went through an extremely hard postpartum as well. All of that postpartum experience, the dark times, the beautiful times, like all of those memories and times were had in that home with my son. I had the hardest time letting go of it. I was so emotional. I was literally riddled, and it's so funny because my sister always says this, that she couldn't tell that, like, I mean, my sister's like one of the closest people to me, and she's like, was with me all the time and like seeing me, and she's like, I had no idea, like before I announced that we were moving, she's like, I had no idea that you were riddled with this much like ink. Cause I told her, like, I've just been so anxious and like, worried. She's like, I had no idea that you were even going through this. Like, you do not even show it one bit that you're going through this much like anxiety or anything. And I feel like I just hide it really well, especially since becoming a mom, because I didn't want Kylo to see me that anxious. Like, it was already such a large move, and I knew he could kind of sense the change because, I don't know, we were packing boxes and his stuff were starting to be packed in boxes, and his room was starting to get more empty, and the house was starting to get empty. I just got a sense that he could start to feel it. So I just had this immense mom guilt, but I did a good job at hiding it. I'm really interested if any of my followers or subscribers are, I don't know, child psychologists or anything like that. If you can give your input, or even just if you've done research on this and what your opinion is. Like, maybe in my mind, I thought that Kylo could sense that we were moving and it was this big deal, but maybe to him, he's literally a 2-year-old living his life, does not care as long as his mom and dad are there. Like, do you know what I mean? I want to know psychologically what you think happens. Like, does a toddler that age even notice or care? I'm really curious on like what your guys' thoughts are. I feel like they do notice a little bit. My other thought is like, what if we were literally just renovating the house and that's why we were emptying it out, then I wouldn't have even had mom guilt. But because I knew we were moving to another country and that was the reason why the house was starting to look empty, I felt that guilt because I thought that Kyla was feeling it. But do you know what I mean? Like, let's just say hypothetically that we were actually not moving, we were just renovating the house and that's why the house was getting empty. I wouldn't feel guilty, right? It wouldn't be a big deal. So I wouldn't even be thinking twice if Kylo noticed anything. Sometimes I think we make it up in our own heads. Do you know what I mean? Anyways, I definitely know that once we did move and we actually had this weird period where, I actually don't think I've talked about this, but we had this weird period where the dates of us closing on our home and having to move out of our home and then our flight to Tennessee did not align. So we had this awkward 3-day period where we didn't have a home. So we're like, okay, what do we do? Do we stay with my parents or get a hotel? And we ultimately decided to get a hotel because that ended up falling on the same week where my family was in Portugal. So we're like, there's no point in staying all the way, like where my parents live, it's like an hour from the airport and our flight was so early. They weren't even there, they were in Portugal. So we're like, you know what, let's just stay in a hotel near the airport. So we had this like awkward 3-day period where like, I think it was 2 days, 2-3 day period where we were literally in a hotel just waiting for our flight to move to Tennessee. And fun fact, like I don't even know if I should tell this whole story. I don't know. Fun fact, okay, let's get into it. That was actually the first time we were going to visit Tennessee, but we had it in our brain already that we knew we wanted to move there. We just needed to visit to confirm. And we had a backup plan, obviously. A lot of you guys asked me about this, is like, did we know it was always gonna be Tennessee? Did we have any other states? We were like 99% sure we were going to love Nashville, but we had to have a backup plan, obviously, because we had never been to Nashville. Like, it's insane because we literally decided to move there without even visiting, but we didn't fully decide. You know what I mean? Like, we were like 99% decided, but we're like, we need to obviously confirm that we like it. And if we didn't like it, then we were gonna check out South Carolina. So we had a backup plan, but Nashville was like our number one. Like, we just, based on all these different factors, Nashville was our number one. We were just crossing our fingers that when we actually got there in real life, that we were actually gonna love it, but we ended up loving it. So there we go. Fast forward, spoiler alert, we ended up loving it and we moved to Tennessee. But anyways, yeah, we had that awkward period where we were like in a hotel and it was kind of like, it was so surreal. It's like a little bit, not even a little bit, I was riddled with anxiety. Like, I had just sold my home, made the decision to leave Canada, but we didn't know concretely where we were going to go. Again, we knew 99% like we're moving to Nashville. We just needed to confirm. So you have to understand, from my point of view at the time, I had never been to Nashville, okay? I don't know if based on my research, all my research was wrong and this place was gonna be completely different than what I saw online and I wasn't gonna like the vibe, or I don't know, maybe it was gonna be too much for me. I don't know. Like, we were like, let's just go live in Nashville for 5.5 weeks and see if we like it. And then we'll go from there and decide if we wanna move there, or if we didn't like it, our backup plan was to just go visit another state and basically find a state. There's 50 states in the US, y'all. We were bound to find one state that we liked and we had a list, you know? Again, we had our number one and our number two. So we knew we were leaving Canada, period. It was just such an anxious time. Like, I was riddled with anxiety, and then Kylo had just hit that like terrible 2 phase at the same time, and I didn't know if it was him having the terrible 2s or if it was him feeling all of the changes of us moving. So I was riddled with guilt. He was just having a lot of tantrums, he was hitting, doing like a lot of these sorts of things, and I was like, is it because we moved? Is it because he feels like we're in a whole different place and he feels that? Is it because he's entering that terrible 2 phase? Like, I will say at that time, like, maybe he also, because I think right around that age they get their back molars. Like, I don't know, there's just so much that goes on when it comes to raising a child. They go through so many different stages and phases, but life also goes through so many different stages and phases. So I was like, oh my God, is he acting like this because we're moving? Like, I felt so guilty. As a mom, you're always wondering, am I making the right decision for my kid? And there's just that aspect of it. So I think if you are planning on moving to another country or another state or province with your toddler or your kids, just know it's going to come with a lot of like guilt and anxiety, second guessing your decisions. So you have to know, like, for a fact, you have to know you're making the right decision. So in a way, I want to say you have to know you're making the right decision, but at the same time, you have to also know that like life is about learning. So let's say you do make that move and you decide, you know what, I don't like being around away from my family, or you know what, I kind of liked it better where I was from. You just move back. Like, it's really not the end of the world. And I shared this before, but I really want to share this again. If she's watching this video, like, thank you. She doesn't even know who I am, but I'm just saying, if by some chance she's watching this video right now and she finds this video, when we were selling our home, we sold all of our furniture in it. So I ended up coming across a girl on Facebook Marketplace that had a bunch of Airbnbs, and she was like, oh, you're moving, you're selling all your stuff. This is perfect because I have so many Airbnbs that I need to fill up and I need a lot of furniture. So I'm like, oh my God, I hit the jackpot. Like, we both hit the jackpot in a way. She needed a lot of furniture. I was getting rid of all my furniture. Jackpot. So instead of having to meet up with like hundreds of of different Facebook marketplace sellers, I ended up just having like one girl that literally bought 80% of my home, the stuff in my home, everything from like pillows, random decor pieces to like pots and pans, furniture, large for like just everything, guys, a printer, like random stuff. She bought like 80% of my home, literally. Obviously, we met up so many times to exchange stuff, and she actually had a whole story about how she lived in so many different places with her husband and her, I think 2 kids or 1 kid at the time, but now she has 4 or 5 kids, can't remember. But anyway, she told me like, oh yeah, they lived all around the world. They lived in South Africa at one point, and I was like, that's incredible. Like, and then I said to her, that's amazing to hear that, because like I've been feeling so much guilt about, you know, moving my son away from his family and stuff and just taking him out of his first home. Like that was like really big for me at the time. I was having a lot of anxiety over removing Kylo from like his home specifically and his room. Like that was just really big for me, because I was like, that's his room. Like he's not gonna have his room anymore. I don't know why that really bothered me. I think it's because children do really well with routine. So like to take a kid away from their room and away from their home, it really bothered me. I just kind of mentioned that to her because it came up in the subject. We were having a conversation and she's like, you know what? One thing you're gonna realize is this is going to teach your son that home is not 4 walls with a bunch of materialistic items in it. Home is wherever his mom and dad are. And man, did that ever help me. Like if you're watching this, which I don't think she is watching this, she doesn't even know who I am, but like if by some miracle you're watching this, you completely just changed my perspective and changed my journey. Like that gave me so much peace. Anytime I would feel riddled with anxiety or get worried, I would remember what she said and it would bring me so much peace. Like I feel like we were meant to meet and have that conversation because it helped me so much. Like even if you're moving and you feel guilty, like let's say even if you're just moving across the street, but you're just moving into a new home and you feel guilty, just let that sentence give you peace. Home is wherever mom and dad are for your children. Like they just want to be with their mommy and daddy. So that's the topic of mom guilt. I had a lot of mom guilt. I think it's important to know that such a big move like that is going to come with some guilt, some mom guilt, some second guessing, some anxiety. One of the biggest tips that I have is kids do best on routine. So I would say even though you're moving, try to keep their routine as much the same as possible. If you wake up in the morning, give them their bottle. If they have a certain stuffed toy that they like to take with them into bed every night, like keep their routine as close and as normal as possible even throughout the move. We packed the same bed sheet that Kylo had on his crib. We packed that same exact sheet. And I know this might sound nasty, but it's not nasty. It's a freshly washed sheets. We always wash Kylo's sheets once a week, but I had made sure that we didn't wash it like before leaving. Like it was in his crib for like 3-4 days and then we brought it with us. I didn't want it to have a new smell. I wanted it to have like the scent of like our home. Then also brought his stuffed toys. He has his Bunny and Ellie that he sleeps with because we were in an Airbnb. Even though he wasn't in his crib, he was in a playpen. Another thing that really helped me was I actually set up his playpen in his room in our old house before we moved. That way when we did move and we did go to the Airbnb or the new home, wherever you're going and you're not gonna have your stuff right away, he didn't have this like brand new playpen that he's never seen before, that he's never slept in. I made sure to bring the playpen that I knew he was going to be sleeping in, or the travel crib, some people call it travel crib. I made sure to set that up in his room like 2 or 3 weeks before we moved, and I just left it in his room. He would sit in it, lay down in it, be silly in it. He never actually slept in it because he had his crib and he loved his crib, but I just kept it out there so he would see it, he'd familiarize himself with it, and it wouldn't be this new thing that all of a sudden he's gonna be expected to sleep in when we get on a plane and go to a whole other country. You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely if you're moving and you're not gonna have some of your stuff right away and your kid is gonna have to sleep in a new playpen or a travel crib or something, set it up 2-3 weeks before and let them just familiarize themselves with it. That was a huge tip of mine. So yeah, just trying to keep the routine as close as possible, bringing their favorite toys, like their favorite stuffed animals, their favorite books. I had a whole luggage that was packed with Kylo's toys. It was so important for me for him to feel like he had his toys. And again, I know materialistic items don't matter, but kids are kids. They love their toys and everybody has like their little prized possessions that they love. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to completely rip them away from him. I wanted him to like have a bunch of his favorite cars and favorite toys just for him to feel comfortable and have the items that he loved. And then the other thing is set up their room first. Like one of the first things we did when we got to the Airbnb was show Kylo which one is his room. We spent a lot of time in there before him having to go to bed. Like we would sit in his room, color on that first day before he had to have the first night sleeping in there. And honestly, he slept amazing the first night. He slept for 9 hours. He slept for 11 hours straight, or was it 10 or 11? I don't know, but he slept like straight uninterrupted. He didn't wake up because Kylo had been sleeping through the night at that point, obviously. And I just said to my husband, you know, let's mentally prepare ourselves for him to wake up a couple times throughout the night night for the first few nights of being here because it's a new place, it's a new country. It would be totally normal. Like we would totally expect him to wake up and just need some extra loving and extra reassurance that everything's okay. Never woke up like he was good. I really don't know if it was the fact that he was tired from traveling. I don't think so because the next day he slept really good as well, and the day after that he slept good. But I will say after about a couple days, he did have a couple nights where he would wake up. So maybe it started settling into his head. I don't know. But yeah, just be patient with them. Set up their room first, bring their comfort items, and spend a lot of time in that room that they're going to be sleeping in so that they can also get comfortable in it. They can see it's like a room you guys all hang out in. And yeah, I don't know. I just feel like this is a video that I really wanted to make because a lot of you guys might possibly be moving. A lot of you guys ask me like, how did you deal with moving to a whole other country with your toddler? And it's definitely a big change. I also highly would recommend labeling boxes with your toddler's items very clearly, because when you do get those boxes in wherever you did move, you're gonna want those items first and you're gonna wanna know where they are, and you don't wanna have to like search through a million boxes to find them. So just make sure you're labeling everything really well. This was just good for me to like chat about because I never got a chance to actually sit down, and my intention was to actually talk to you guys about it in that Tennessee vlog when I first traveled, but I really wasn't able to get into it too much. We just were like really enjoying our traveling and I just wasn't able to. So yeah, I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Sugar, the way he's laying down right now, you have got to see. So I don't know, let me know what you guys think. You know, do you think it actually affects the kids? Do you think they're too young? Do you think there's a certain age? I feel like, I don't know, once kids hit that like 1.5 year mark, I feel like they're very conscious of things and understand things a lot more. Under that 1.5 year, 2 year mark, I don't know, I feel like they're very adaptable and they don't really understand things too much. So that might actually be, if you're planning on making a large move, it's actually a good idea in my opinion to do it under 2, like before they hit 2. Because I feel like they don't realize things that much when they're under 2. Anyways, I don't know, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Are any of you going through something similar right now or will be going through something similar? I just always love to connect with you guys, and I feel like I want this channel to be more about me sharing real aspects of my life and certain things, and that was like a big thing that I went through and a big period of my time that I kind of didn't share because in the moment when you're going through it, it was just super personal. And me deciding to move from the US to Canada, that decision was made for like almost a year and I didn't mention it to any of you guys. So a lot of it was happening behind the scenes. There was a lot of like excitement, but a lot of fear all happening behind the scenes, and I was dealing with it like complete, you know what I mean? So I kind of just like, it feels good now to kind of just go back and recap that time in my life and just talk to you guys about it. Anyways, I know this was just like super chit chatty, but again, I want this channel to be a little bit more us connecting. So there's gonna be sometimes videos like this where I'm literally just getting thoughts out of my head, and I want to hear from your guys' point of view too. Like I find it very interesting to just hear the perspective of so many different people and just all connect. So Sugar, you are such a little love muffin. He's now laying down in my lap. Oh, your little love muffin. And then you have Sugar, who literally just did not care about the move. Like did not care, not one bit. Anyways, yeah, thank you guys for watching and let me know what your thoughts are.